Hello, YouTubers and fellow hams. Well, it's getting close to time for me to move again. Been down here in the desert north of Yuma for a while, and the temperatures are finally starting to change and the weather's changing. And I heard a phrase, a way of putting things amongst the travelers down here that kind of stuck with me. You follow the butter. And what they're talking about is when your butter starts to melt, it's time to go north. And if the butter's too hard, it's time to go south. Meaning, when the temperatures change. And so, yeah, it's starting to warm up down here. We're getting some days that are getting into the low 80s Fahrenheit. I'll put the Celsius over here. And so, yeah, we got another chilly bit next week. It's going to be a little cooler again, but then it's going to warm back up and stay warm. So probably the first week of March, I think I'll be moving up to my my quiet spot up around Quartzsite, my little private hidden spot. What I do is I go to this place to sort of decompress and recharge. It's an area where I don't know anybody. I mean, there's people around me, but I don't know anybody. They don't know me. So socializing is completely optional. I can talk to people when I want to, but I can also be alone and not be bothered. And I need that once in a while. I'm kind of that kind of person. I think I mentioned that before. Back when I was in the house, I'd talk to my neighbors, but I'd pretty much keep to myself, do my own thing, And I need that now and then, just to sort of center myself and get my head level. It's been real busy down here. There's a lot of people I know here, and they know me, and lots of things that go on. I don't partake in as many of them as most of the other guys do, but that's just my personality. But it's been busy, it's been active, and that's been fine, and I've enjoyed it. But now I'm ready for a little solace, a little peace and quiet, a little calm. Too many waves. I need some calm. So I'm going to be moving soon, back up to Quartzsite area. Probably be there until either the heat drives me out or April 15th when they close the areas. And then I'll go up to Kingman, to my friend Tony's property up there. And then figure out what I'm going to do. This summer I have promised my friends and family back east that I'm going to visit, so I've got to figure that out. I'm not going to drive the RV. It would be somewhere in the arena of $1,200 in fuel to drive the RV one way there. So I'm not going to drive the RV. So what I'm probably going to do is I might ride the train. I might ride the Amtrak across the country. It'll be cheaper for me to take the train both ways across the country and rent a car for a week there than it'll be for me to drive one way. So it'd be about half the price that would cost me to drive the RV. So once I get up to Kingman, I'll spend a little time there. I've got an experiment I want to work on that I need the space for, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then probably July, I'll take a couple of weeks and make the trip back east. My mom's already got a list of things for me to do around the house there. But I also want to visit my friends in Fort Wayne that I haven't seen, and the local hams up there that I haven't seen in over a year. So we'll make that trip probably in July. And then it's possible that I might be going up to Oregon for the latter part of the summer, spend some time in the trees. I've met some people here that have a place up there, and they've told me I'm welcome to come up and hang out with them for a while. So down the road, I might end up there in Oregon amongst the trees for a month or two before I come back down here for the next winter. So yeah, this is going to be a little bit of travel this year. I'm looking forward to that. This winter here, though, man, there's been a lot of activity. Quartz Fest was huge. We got through that. I was a little worried about it, but I planned it. I was prepared for it, and it went off real smooth. I was real happy with the panel and how it went off, and the video's been doing pretty well. People enjoyed it. The people there really enjoyed it. They liked being able to talk to some of their favorite YouTubers and ask questions and interact with us. And so that was, it was a success. I'm real happy with that, and I'm glad it's over. I was really stressing out over it leading up to it, but it went off pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. This weekend it's Sunday now, but Friday and Saturday were the Yuma Ham Fest, and I went down Friday. A lot of people were telling me it's huge. It's a great big massive ham fest, and one guy even said it's as big as Dayton, the Ohio Hamvention. No, it was a moderate ham fest. It wasn't huge, but it was a nice one. And I shot some footage. I'll give you guys in the next video a sort of a walk around at the Yuma Ham Fest and show you what it was like. So yeah, that's coming up next. And then I'm starting an experiment, an antenna experiment. Some of you are going, yay! Yeah, well, I mentioned before that one nice thing about being out here in the RV is the room. I've got my antenna farm out here outside the RV with the mast and the doublet that's up now. But I can put up bigger, longer antennas to play with. Well, one of the things that I've always wanted to play with is what's called a beverage antenna. But not really a beverage antenna, but kind of like a beverage antenna. What I'm going to be doing is a little different. A beverage antenna usually is used for a receive, and it's a very, very, very long wire. Hundreds of feet, maybe over 1,000 feet, usually close to the ground and terminated at the far end. And what it becomes a very sensitive, low noise receive antenna for lower frequencies. We're talking like below 80 meters in frequency. And sometimes it's used as a receive antenna with a different transmit antenna, and you can. It's somewhat directional, which weirdly, as I recall from reading about it, it's directional along the length of the wire. So if the wire is pointing that way, you're listening that way. But I'm not going to do a beverage. I am going to do a very long wire. I've got a 500-foot spool of wire. I'll show you a picture. And it's the small wire wrap wire like you'd use for wire wrapping PC boards. It's very light, which I was intending to loft it with some balloons, and I might still get a chance to do that. But it's also surprisingly strong. I actually flew a kite just on the wire instead of using string, and it had no issues at all with the pull of the kite. It's a very strong little wire. So I've got this spool that I have measured out. It's precisely 500 feet. And what my goal is to get a resonant end-fed wire antenna on 630 meters. Now, I've been dying to play with it. I've been wanting to for quite a while. The other day, I took an opportunity here to put it up for a very short amount of time. I figured out that I had just enough room if I went up to the mast and draped down to the far edge where I'm parked here. There's a wash that goes down that has little trees and bushes in it. And so I ran the wire up to my mast and I draped it down to the edge of that wash. And I went down these trees that are down there, and it went quite a ways down into the wash. There's an RV down at the end of the area here, and I went 100 feet past him. I think you can see that in the video clip. So 500 feet, it's a long piece of wire. But I got it up just long enough to do a quick scan of it with the VNA, and then a real quick little play with the radio. I didn't have any time to really film stuff because I had to take it down. There's a hiking trail down through there. It's a very thin wire. It's close to the ground. I didn't want anybody to walk into it, so I couldn't leave it up long enough to really film a bunch of stuff. But it was just a quick look for me. I just wanted to get it somewhat above the ground, scan it with the VNA, I used a 9-to-1 un at the end, and just get a look at it. I had no idea what to expect out of such a long wire. Here's the VNA scan that I did on HF, and it's really interesting. Now, I was feeding this with the 9-to-1 un that's up in the box on the back of my RV, and it's wound on a Type 43 core. And as you can see, the big swings are at the lower frequencies. Interestingly, there's a dip that's almost down to 2-to-1 right down there in the kilohertz region, and it was actually around 287 kilohertz. And that kind of makes sense because the wire is 500 feet, which is a little bit long for 630 meters at a quarter wave. At a quarter wave, I think it's somewhere around 480 feet. So, yeah, it's really intriguing looking at this scan. what's really interesting to me is that once I get above about 9 or 10 megahertz, the SWR pretty much stays right at or below 2 to 1 through most of the rest of the spectrum, all the way up to 10 meters. So it could practically be used without a tuner. The other interesting thing to me is the number of dips that we see across the HF spectrum. Now, the strongest dip down to almost 1 to 1 was just above 4 megahertz. Now, I didn't have much of a counterpoise wire on there, but I knew from a previous experiment where I had the 60-foot mast up. You remember the spider beam mast? I ran a wire up the length of that mast, and I wanted to play around with that wire, so I fed it with a 9 to 1, and I played around with a counterpoise length, and I found that I could resonate that 60-foot vertical just at within 80 meters, and I got it right down to almost 1 to 1. So using the 9 to 1, if you get the right length of a counterpoise wire for your main radiator wire, it kind of electrically looks like an off-center fed antenna, you know, because the 9 to 1 is down near one of the ends, and then you've got that counterpoise leg. So by playing around with this 500-foot wire, shortening it, putting a counterpoise on it, I should be able to get a resonant point that comes up to or right at the 630 meter band. And looking at the intervals between these dips, I think that if I'm seeing it right, there might also be dips right around the other ham bands. So I'm really interested in getting this back up where I can spend some time playing with it. And I'm going to do that hopefully when I get up to quartzite. I should be able to find a place that I can park. There's washes there that are not very deep but have taller bush and shrub trees in them, like 10, 12 feet tall. So I should be able to run the wire up over the top of the mast, drape it down to one of those trees, and be able to run it the full length, well above head height on the ground, so I don't have to worry about anybody running into it, and have it up for a period of time where I can play with it. So what I plan on doing when I get up to quartzite is getting this really long end-fed wire up, tuning it for 630 meters. My main goal will be to get a resonant wire antenna on 630 meters, and then try to make some contacts with that. But then also find out how well it's going to work on the other ham bands, and hopefully it's going to line up and work on the other ham bands as well, maybe even without a tuner. So it might be a monster of an antenna. I'm really looking forward to playing with that. And if that pans out, then once I get up to Kingman, I have another idea for how to build what will be just a monster build, but basically it'll be a 400 and some odd feet, 500 foot wire that's fit within about a 60 square foot area. So it might be possible to put it up in a backyard if this idea works. So I've got these antenna experiments that I'm going to start messing around with, and I know some of you will enjoy that again too. So let's see, I don't know how long I've been talking, but I think that's pretty much it. So that's what's going on. We'll be moving in a couple of weeks, and then after a month and a half or so there, up to Kingman, and then we'll just keep going. So the next video will be sort of a virtual walkthrough of the Yuma Ham Fest, and then depending upon the timing, I might have another little antenna experiment in between before I move or not. We'll see. So that's what's going on with me, and thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to all my Patreons. You guys enable me to keep doing this, and I really appreciate it. And everybody else, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, if you're not already a subscriber, click to subscribe. Join us on the Facebook channel for discussion about the videos. And if you'd like to help support this channel, please click to support me on my Patreon page.